thank you for coming back. I had just asked David about Germany in 2012, and I had to cut it short to get it on this part two. So, David, please continue about what was happening and your thoughts on the Germany gold.
Well, Sherry, this is preposterous. Me and I think many others, John Emery being one, who I just saw at the gold show in Vancouver, British Columbia about a week ago. I think this is the start of a gold run. I think, maybe the power elites can come in and take care of business, so to speak, using a metaphorical language for some dictator types that are advocating gold or return to gold or gold-backed currency or wanting their gold back or something along those lines. But Germany's too powerful an entity. Really, it's the strongest of the European Union. And so they acknowledge, okay, you can have your gold back for 7 years. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. If it's their gold, they should be able to have it back in a matter of a very short time frame. Of course, it takes time to audit, put it on a ship and ship it over there, or an aircraft. You could do it by airplanes. But I mean, it's ridiculous to think it's going to take that long. So I think this is waking up other nation states that have their gold deposited in either London or New York and saying, hey, wait a minute, something is wrong. If Germany needs, if the Fed needs 7 years to give Germany back its gold, what about our gold? What about our gold? So this could start a bank run in real terms, meaning real money. I mean, gold is money, silver is money, and all this other stuff is fiction. So, and there's already talk on the internet about starting a currency war. Well, doggone right, a currency war. There's a war between what's real and what isn't. The real war is between what's real, money for 5,000 years, gold and silver, or anything else that has a piece of paper behind it with nothing behind it. So I don't want to get too agitated about it or amped up, because these things, for my 40 years in this market, usually take longer than you expect. I mean, you see that news, you see even the mainstream press now picking it up and talking about it, and you think, geez, something is imminent. And my experience has been that when you get that kind of feeling, relax a little bit, because it's probably going to take a lot longer than either you or I think it should, Sherry. And I hate to speak for you, so I'll take that back. Longer than I think it should, but yet be patient, because those type of big fundamental shifts, paradigm shifts, if you will, may take time, but it could be astronomical in the long run. And just look for the subtle clues as we go on. Look for this thing to kind of die off. But even when you think it's died off, believe me, it has not. This is absolutely, I think, one of the biggest things to hit the gold market probably since the bull market began.
Well, speaking of that and huge shifts, China today on China Daily News site, and we all know China keeps everything very close to their vest, right? They don't release anything till after it's done. China news site today had the words global reserve currency, not convertible currency, which has always been used before. We know last year that China bought the London Metals Exchange, the CME started trading the yuan, and now this article was saying global reserve currency. There's been a lot of talk about them backing their currency with gold. There was an article saying that they're going to import 5,000 to 6,000 tons. There's the report, that it's about 1,000 tons a year, but probably more than that. It seems that, and then they had in the same newspaper the unloved dollar and how the frustration with the Federal Reserve. You put those two together, and it seemed to me that they were saying a lot, and especially using the reserve currency. What do you think about that? I mean, that seems to be pretty big, in my opinion.
Well, Sherry, first of all, let me compliment you for connecting the dots so well. I mean, after I read your blog this morning about, the CME buying into the LME, trading in the Yuan now, and everything you just outlined, that's a pretty good connecting the dots. And now you have basically an announcement that says, potentially it could be a reserve currency. I was one of the first. I think I had like 6 or 7 paid members at the time that said there was a meeting, and there was, in Southeast Asia, and a trial balloon was set up in that meeting that was basically, what about a gold-backed yuan? And there wasn't a lot of feedback on that. I think it was just kind of a trial balloon to see what the perception would be on the Asian countries for having something of substance, a currency that's backed by gold. So will this happen? I don't know. But again, get it this far along portends, I think, the inevitable future that the dollar will cease to be the reserve currency of the world, and there will be something that will take its place. If you look at the Austrian School of Economics, we look at capital not as savings per se or money per se. We look at capital as being the means of production. In other words, who is producing wealth. It's pretty obvious to anyone who can think very much at all that China is producing most of the wealth. I mean, I just bought an iPad recently. Where are these things manufactured? China is producing wealth. And what they're getting for producing all that wealth is a lot of these fancy pieces of paper called bonds. Well, they know the history. They know China more than anybody. I did this in my speech at the Silver Summit in October. China knows better than anyone for monetary history that paper money always fails. They had 8 out of 8 failures in China. It always failed. So knowing this, they've been moving into the gold market slowly but surely. Now, these are my opinions and the way I see it, but the facts also speak pretty loud and clear. They've always taken on more gold than they've actually reported. Whether or not they plan to back their currency with the gold or not, I don't know. What I do know is that they continue to buy quietly and that they certainly have justifiable mistrust of the West, and that's me saying it, not them. But certainly they've had Mr. Geithner over there when he was top official in the Fed, from the New York Fed, the New York Bank branch, Secretary of the Treasury, and I'm sure they had a few words for him a few times, and he gladly flew over there. You don't see the Chinese flying into Washington that often, although they do. So you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but the conversation could easily go like, we don't want much more of your paper. And that also is a fact. If you look at what their purchases have been over the last few years versus what they were, let's say, 3-4 years ago, they are substantially less than they were before. And what's China doing is buying resources, is buying real wealth in the ground all over the world. So they know what's going on. They just know that if they move too fast or the shift is too great, the whole house of cards could come down. Again, those are my words, but they know they don't want to upset the apple cart too much because their interests, as well as everyone else's, so to speak, are very tenuous at this time. And that's why 2013, I think, is such a difficult time to call what's going to happen in any market, including the precious metals, because the fundamental facts continue to deteriorate. Yet, as I said earlier, and I want to be consistent, these things seem to just take on the ability to stretch out longer than you can imagine. It's like, oh, come on, we're there now, aren't we? And factually we are, but for the markets to wake up and for the panic buying to start, boy, that's a tough call to make. I don't really see it necessarily happening this year, although I do think both gold and silver will be conservatively higher this year. I think silver easily over 40, and I think gold well over 2,000 by the end of 2013. But that's not the focus. The focus is to really understand what's going on. And Sherrie, again, you brought it to the fore. Let's pay attention here, folks. You got Germany asking for its gold back, so you have a potential gold run. You got China talking about perhaps being a reserve currency, and underneath that theme, you've got some very significant gold imports going into China over the last few years, and that's not going to stop.
Well, also we're going into, which is a whole different subject, but speaking of, we're going into, the U.S. is sending troops into 35 different countries in Africa, and it ends up, I did not put it on, but China said the reason why they're doing it, and it was from the same Chinese newspaper, and I didn't write about it, is that they're trying to keep take the assets and the resources. David, I want to thank you for joining me. Please tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and subscribe.
Okay, well, let's do everything free first. YouTube channel is Silver Guru. The Twitter channel is Silver Guru 22. You go to silver-investor.com, you can get the free e-letter. That is done once a week, so I'm not bombing you every day with something. I collect what I do during the week, summarize it, and send it out on the weekend. And lastly, there's a membership service at 3 different levels. That's over on the right-hand side of the website. You can certainly explore that. I made a video of each one so you have a good idea of what you're getting for, dollar invested. I am well connected in the silver industry. I've certainly spent my lifetime devoted